We change laws. How easy is it to change a law in New York State? I don't know. But when you're the largest employer and the largest taxpayer in the state of Nevada, we can get laws changed pretty quickly. And we regularly do it.
Hey everybody, hope everybody is doing well. Well, yesterday was not a so bright day in our state. I guess you can call it the end of the Second Amendment, or some of the benefits that we cherished for decades. And as you can see here, Governor Sisolak just signed a gun background check law. So you can see here in the photo, you have here Aaron Ford, you have many other people in the legislature, surprisingly a lot of African Americans. So this is what they do. They play identity politics to get the laws passed. And then to your far right, you have this Alexander guy who, in my opinion, got elected because a lot of people from the Horn of Africa came here to pump this guy working as taxis, and they basically drive like terrible. And so you see here, he's signing this law. You can see his face right here. And I basically spoke regarding this measure. And my point is that the heart of the problem was what really led to the passage of this law was the fact that the Route 91 incident was a scare tactic to take away our gun freedoms, or whatever you want to call it. And so basically it was all set up. MGM Resorts CEO Jim Murren, who was, I believe, the largest donor of Sisolak. Of course, Sandoval left to work for him, and one of the largest donor of many of these politicians, which I believe, including, believe it or not, Commissioner Jones, believe it or not. I actually saw him last Wednesday, and while I was confronting Tech, and I don't know what is he doing there. So they did this scare tactic saying the guns are bad, 58 people were killed, and there you have it from the clip before. We changed the laws, we're the largest employer, we're the largest donor, and this is what they're doing. Because these large corporations are heavily involved, connected to the global establishment to take away your Second Amendment rights. Now, you can argue that whether this is a gun grabbing or not, but then again, the heart of the problem, what I'm really pissed off is at how MGM manufactured an event to pass this law. And then again, you have to understand that the Reid machine, the Steyer machine, the Soros machine pumped a lot of money into these candidates, not to mention a lot of non-governmental organizations, such as an Asian Community Council, whether it's the Culinary Workers Union, the SEIU, that pumped a lot of money into these candidates. They work with immigrants. Again, this is kind of the point I just want to make. Without this massive immigration, you would have not seen these elected officials in the first place, and therefore you would have not seen these laws come to pass. Because this is how it works. The more immigrants we often get, the more politicians we get, and things continue to get worse and worse, and then we see these laws get passed year after year. And so, what's going on? Now, I believe this was a scare tactic. MGM is countersuing the victims, and basically, I just came from the mob crisis, manufactured incidents, scare people away, people get shot and killed, and they basically control and influence our politicians, just like the mob used to do several decades ago. As time moves on, people figure out, and a lot of these people are held accountable. My problem is with this legislature is not really, it's a real leftist legislature, because keep in mind that these legislative officials are not like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They're heavily backed by the Reid establishment. By the way, the Reid largely selects the candidates, whether it's Democrat or Republican, because they rigged it against Bernie in the caucus. They pumped up a lot of rhinos in 2015, and Reid was against the Ocasio 70% tax plan. And I'm sure the legislature is against that, because Jim Murren of MGM Resorts would have to pay a higher tax, or otherwise he'd have to reduce his salary. So maybe it's a good thing, I don't know. But then again, it is the Reid machine that has a lot of the power. He is establishment. He is for the military-industrial complex. He's for the banks. And I've told them that you guys are so much for increasing taxes, you should implement a tax plan or you should impose a tax on foreign money remittances. But I bet they won't because massive immigration is pumping their chances. Now, as we go down, you can see all of these comments and stories that they have made. And there was a lot of Republican opposition. The good news is that there was a lot of people that spoke out against the plan. This means that a lot of people, believe it or not, are finally stepping out, protesting, fighting back. I believe there's one tomorrow with Elizabeth Warren visiting. I'm going to probably attend it and film it. And they're starting to realize these elections don't do jack. So this is kind of the thing that you have to really, really understand. What I told them when I spoke, I said, look, I've never gambled here one dime in Nevada. So this idea of banning things, banning guns, banning sodas, banning abortions, banning drugs, all these things, in the heart of the problem, it does not work because what really matters the most is the mind. Is the mind sane? Are people moral? Are people educated enough? Think about that. One of the reasons why we're seeing all these mass shootings has to do with the pharmaceutical drugs, the lifestyle, the lack of social connectivity, knowing your neighbors, the long traffic, the stress, the financial and economic hardships, jobs paying less, longer hours, higher cost of living, lack of family life, divorce court, which is often rigged against women, children being raised in single-parent households, massive immigration, multiculturalism. Of course, a lot of these problems, believe it or not, are causing this illnesses, this insanity, this mass shooting. Now, believe it or not, I just wanted to point out that there's going to be very likely, in my opinion, a lot of lawsuits that are going to come regarding all this. Because a lot of people are going to state that, well, this is not only against the federal constitution, but it's against the state constitution as well. So you have to know your rights, you have to fight back. But again, this is why many times I keep pointing out. Because I have to tell you, I don't know what to deliver on the fact that I've heard that there's a good possibility that there's going to be a lot of taxes and a lot of fees imposed in this. That's what I'm really, really concerned about. So this, again, comes to the response of the mass shooting that took place, according to the article. And if this is going to impose a lot of fees and taxes, I guess you can see what this intent is really, really about. So we'll have to see, know your rights. Now, I wanted to show you this headlines, as you can see right here. Now, believe it or not, there was a mass shooting that took place in Illinois. And the shooter, believe it or not, was not a registered gunman. So if you think that this background check is going to really do anything, well, just look what happened with Illinois. And I'm sure the shooter in the Route 91 incident was not, I believe, a guy who is going to go through a background check. Criminals really don't follow laws when you think about it. So you have to see who this is really being aimed at. So anyway, tell me what you guys think, because this is looking really, really ugly. Remember, folks, without this massive voter drive, remember, they now have voter ID system. So that this is done so that you can get same-day registration through this whole process. And I hear that there's a lawsuit going through, and I believe that there's a lawsuit now being imposed by the Clark County Republican Party claiming that there's a lot of fraudulent registration. Because, again, these immigrants who are voting with the Culinary Union, they're giving us the margins of victory that we need to get these politicians in power to pass the laws that we can. And I wouldn't be surprised that there's massive election fraud. I mean, how can you have all this change in the legislature in a matter of a few years? See, this is, again, because of the fact that you've got about 80% or so of the population living in Clark County. So it's very, very easily to manipulate the whole process. All right.